The shit is wicked on these mean streets, mean streets.
Dear God, I wonder can you save me?
Back in the summer of 2012, the streets were already heating up for Joseph Coleman. Lil JoJo to the world, JoJo to the people who knew his heart. Word travels fast in Chicago, and so does trouble. On August 12th, he found himself face to face with the kind of moment that changes a person forever. His rivals tried to take him out, bullets cutting through the air like the city itself was exhaling danger. Anybody else might have taken that close call as a sign to fall back, move quieter, rethink the path. But JoJo wasn't built that way. He had a stubborn streak carved into him, the kind of fire that refuses to dim no matter how hard life tries to snuff it out. By the end of that month, around August 31st, that fire pushed him into a move he couldn't take back. One choice, one step too bold, and it set the stage for the moment that would end everything far too soon. In the neighborhoods he came from, a single mistake could echo louder than a gunshot. JoJo's story didn't start in chaos, though. He came into the world on April 6, 1994, born on Chicago soil, surrounded by the weight and rhythm of the city. His mom, Robin Russell, held down the home while life dealt them a rough hand early on. When JoJo was barely 5 months old, his father got hit with a 13-year sentence for attempted murder. With his pops gone before he even learned to walk, JoJo grew up leaning on someone else, his half-brother John. John was just 3 months older, but they moved like twins, raised between two houses that might as well have been one. Their moms made sure the boys stayed close, and the boys took it from there. John, who later hit the rap scene as Swag Dinero, always said they were more than brothers. They had that unspoken bond, the kind where you don't need words because the connection is louder than anything you could say. A single look was enough for them to know exactly what the other was thinking. Together they moved through childhood, through the noise, through the city's pressure, and as JoJo got older, that same unbreakable loyalty and fire became the backbone of who he was. It's what drove him. It's what defined him. And in the end, it was part of what pulled him into the moment that cost him everything. Right before JoJo hit 14, life gave him something he never expected. His father came home. After years of growing up without him, that return flipped everything. John would later swear that stretch of time was the brightest part of their childhood. Their pops brought a kind of structure the boys had never really known. He kept them in line, made sure they weren't going without, and stepped in whenever he felt they were drifting off track. For that 1 year, it felt like their world finally had someone steering the ship. But the streets don't let good things last long. Just a year later, their father was snatched away again. This time hit with 22 years on drug charges. The boys were only 15. One minute they had the guidance they'd been missing their whole lives, and the next, they were right back where they started. Two teenagers trying to figure out manhood without a man to learn it from. Their moms did what they could, but the weight of raising boys in that environment was heavier than love alone could carry. With that void wide open again, the streets became their classroom. Most of their family was already tied into the gangster disciples, and living in that world made it almost impossible not to get pulled in. It wasn't about chasing trouble. It was the culture around them, the pressure, the lack of direction. Even then, neither JoJo nor John touched the drug game. They'd watched what it did to their father, and they refused to follow that same path. But staying out of the drug business didn't mean staying out of the streets. They were deep in that life, moving through the same blocks and conflicts that shaped everybody around them. Most of their people claimed GD, but JoJo stood on something different. Brick Squad, an insane GD set. Those sets didn't move like the rest. They weren't linked up with every GD faction, and sometimes the beef stayed inside the same nation. So even though JoJo was GD by affiliation, he still threw up GDK, calling out the same organization his family represented. It was a complicated lane to walk, but that was the reality of the world he grew up in. Nothing was simple, and every choice carried its own weight. Brick Squad wasn't out there moving blind. They had a circle of sets that stood shoulder to shoulder with them. Wooga World, MOB, CMB, No Love City. When those groups linked together, it felt like a whole section of the South Side breathing as one. But being an insane GD set meant Brick Squad didn't walk the same straight line as everyone else. Insane sets have their own rules, their own code, and sometimes their own enemies. Even if the rest of the nation was rocking together, anyone could become a target if the wrong situation popped off. But it was the tension with the BDs that really shifted their whole world. On their side of town, the BD presence was heavy. Lamron, O-Block, AMG, those weren't just names, they were entire blocks that carried weight. A lot of those BD sets fell under the Big 300 umbrella, a network that had its own structure and its own pride. Lamron had their identity, O-Block had theirs, but 300 tied them all together. When you went against one, sometimes you were going against all of them. As JoJo was finding his voice and coming up in the streets, Lamron and No Love City were already drifting into a serious beef. That was the real beginning of everything that followed. The tension had been simmering, and it finally broke when Lil Mo from Lamron, one of Lil Durk's close people, got taken out. Right away, the streets pointed towards some No Love guys as the ones behind it. Whether anyone had proof didn't even matter, because once a rumor gets a heartbeat in Chicago, it runs faster than the truth ever could. Durk didn't let the moment slide either. He addressed it straight up in the track R.I.P. Lil Mo, throwing the first punch on the music side. And after that, the energy around the blocks changed. No Love City got hit twice, 2 members gone nearly back to back. Again, whispers spread that Lamron had their hands in both situations. The cycle of losses and retaliation created a pressure that didn't stay contained. It started pulling in every set connected to either side. A few months later, that storm reached Brick Squad directly. One of their own, Thomas Joyner, got shot multiple times on the 7,000 block of Eggleston. That moment sent shockwaves through JoJo's set because Thomas wasn't just another member, he was blood family to a dude named Killer Kelly. And when the news hit Kells, something inside him snapped. That kind of pain can twist a person's path in an instant. He switched up and started repping insane BD, linking himself with Brick Squad instead of standing where he had been before. From there, the lines in the neighborhood shifted again. Alliances that once seemed solid weren't the same anymore. Old connections broke apart, new ones formed, and every move changed the way the streets felt. What started as tension between 2 sets became a chain reaction that spread across multiple blocks, and each step pulled JoJo and the people around him deeper into a conflict that was bigger than any one person. In that world, nothing happened in isolation. Every retaliation created another one. Every rumor pushed someone closer to a decision they couldn't undo. Brick Squad's ties, their enemies, their allies, everything was shifting like the ground was moving under their feet, and the war with the BDs was the storm sitting right in the middle of it all. By the summer of 2011, things between Lamron and their rivals were already at a boiling point. Then Lamron took another hit. Taysky, one of Durk's closest people, got shot and killed. That loss cut deep. Durk and Taysky weren't just homies, they moved like brothers. So when Taysky died, Durk responded the way he knew best. He went to the booth. He dropped 248 for him, pouring every ounce of pain into the track, and the whole city felt the weight behind it. But that loss didn't slow anything down. If anything, the streets got even more tense. The situation between Lamron and Brick Squad had already been heating up, with smaller run-ins turning into something bigger. It was bubbling, ready to spill over, and then Durk lit the match. When he released L's anthem, everything changed. The disrespect in that track hit loud. Durk called out Brick Squad, threw shots at Wooga World, and even brought up Lil Mo's name again. He didn't hold back, and everybody knew exactly who the song was meant for. It wasn't subliminals, it wasn't coded talk. He was speaking directly to the people he wanted to hit with it. At the same time, Chief Keef was already blowing up on a different level. Tracks like I Don't Like and 3 Huna were putting him and 300 on the national map. The whole industry was starting to look at Chicago, but Durk's record added a different kind of attention. He took the disrespect past just hood talk and dropped it right in the spotlight. Once L's anthem hit, the ops across the city erupted. The energy shifted instantly. People were blasting the track everywhere, reacting, responding, waiting to see what would come next. What had been street-level tension turned into something the entire city could feel. And from that point forward, the beef wasn't just neighborhood talk. Everybody was watching, and every move carried a louder, sharper meaning. At first, JoJo wasn't chasing rap at all. That lane belonged to John, who had already been writing and recording since his freshman year. John had the hunger early, the pen moving before most kids their age even knew what they wanted to do. When they linked up with Smilez, a rapper and producer known for helping young talent, John was the one really pushing the music dream forward. JoJo was around it, but he wasn't trying to jump in yet. Then came the moment that flipped his whole mindset. In April 2012, JoJo and John were riding around when L's anthem came on the radio. Hearing Durk disrespect their side like that, feeling the city reacting to it, something in JoJo clicked right then. It wasn't planned. It wasn't something he had been slowly working toward. That track lit a fuse. He decided right there in that car that he wasn't just going to watch from the sidelines anymore. If the music was going to be another battleground, he was stepping onto it. That's the moment Joseph Coleman became Lil JoJo. Once he made up his mind, he didn't waste time. On April 27, 2012, he dropped his first track, BDK 300K. The title pretty much said everything. BDK meaning Black Disciples Killer. It wasn't subtle, it wasn't disguised, it was straight up confrontation. And he recorded it over the beat from Chief Keef's Every Day, which made the statement even louder since Keef was one of the most well-known BDS in the city. The song hit like a spark in gasoline. JoJo had barely stepped into music, but he came in with a message that demanded attention. From that point forward, he wasn't just part of the streets. He was part of the soundtrack to what was happening out there. By the time JoJo dropped BDK 300K, the tension that had been simmering for months was ready to blow. The feud wasn't just brewing anymore, it was sitting right on the edge, waiting for the smallest shove. And JoJo gave it that shove the moment he followed up with more heat. On September 1st, barely a day after releasing his 300K diss, he doubled down with tracks like his I Got Dat Sack freestyle. He wasn't easing into anything, he was kicking the doors open. JoJo didn't just go after Chief Keef either. He kept firing shots at other BD rappers like Lil Reese and Lil Durk, making it clear he had no intention of backing off. The more people played his diss, the more the city talked, and the more his name spread, the bolder he got. The attention acted like gasoline. Every new view, every share, every reaction online just cranked up his confidence. He could feel the streets watching him, and instead of falling back, he pushed even harder, pressing every button he knew would get a reaction. And it worked. The people he was calling out didn't stay quiet. His rivals started firing back on Twitter, sending shots of their own. At first just taunts, then heavier stuff. What started as online jabs quickly turned into something darker. The back and forth spiraled, and soon, the threats weren't just about pride or music anymore. They were straight up death threats aimed at JoJo. The kind of messages you can't laugh off. The kind you can't just ignore. The city was already tense, already divided, and JoJo's rise added a whole new layer of fuel to a fire that had been burning long before he picked up a mic. Now, the spotlight was fixed on him, and the heat around his name was growing by the hour. People from 10 Trey Block had been watching everything unfold, and they didn't like the direction things were going. They knew the pattern too well. Small shots turned into big shots, jokes turned into bullets, and sooner or later somebody's family is lighting candles. Having lost people of their own to the same cycle, they tried stepping in before another young man got swallowed up by it. They reached out to JoJo with a message rooted in pain and experience, warning him that the path he was walking didn't lead anywhere but the grave or a cell. It wasn't about politics. It was about trying to save him from what they already understood. But JoJo didn't take their caution to heart. The momentum he had, the noise around his name, the pride of his set, everything was pushing him forward faster than he could slow himself down. And ignoring that warning would end up being one of the decisions that pushed him even closer to the moment nobody wanted to see. Not long after, the streets started buzzing about an encounter between JoJo and Lil Reese. According to the neighborhood talk, JoJo spotted Reese in traffic and followed him, heated and ready to escalate the beef. People said he yelled out, "Reese ain't even driving, he a bitch, I'ma pop his ass," letting the world know exactly how he felt in that moment. Instead of keeping it quiet, JoJo jumped on Twitter afterward, turning the entire situation into something for the timeline to laugh at. He treated it like entertainment, another moment of disrespect to add to the list. But that move didn't land the way he thought it would. Whatever he planned to do out there on the street, he didn't finish. And leaving his rivals untouched only fueled the anger already burning toward him. Moments like that don't disappear. They linger, stacking on top of every diss, every word, every action. In a city where grudges run deep and pride runs deeper, the aftermath of that encounter only made things more dangerous. JoJo couldn't see how close he was getting to the edge. With the influence of his set around him and the adrenaline of retaliation pushing him forward, he fell into the same trap that grabs so many young men growing up in the shadows of violence. The streets make revenge look powerful, make fearlessness look like strength, make danger feel like respect. And just like countless others before him, JoJo got pulled into that illusion, unable to see the darkness waiting in front of him. Every step he took kept leading him deeper into a storm he didn't even realize was closing in around him. JoJo didn't slow down. He didn't stop to think about the warning signs or the consequences that were stacking up around him. Instead, he pushed even harder, letting his pride and ego dictate his moves. He took his taunts into the streets, literally stepping into his rival's turf. According to what people talked about in the neighborhood, he even stopped to snap a picture there, the kind meant to flaunt dominance and provoke anyone watching. And of course, he posted it online. making sure the world knew exactly where he was and what he was doing. Every like, every comment, every share fed the fire, but it also painted a target squarely on him. JoJo was blind to it, wrapped up in the thrill of the moment, thinking the boldness made him untouchable. The streets, however, don't reward recklessness for long. Every step forward, every gesture of disrespect, every moment of bravado was a countdown that he couldn't pause or rewind. In the shadows, in whispers, in the quiet corners where the city watched and waited, karma was already moving. The hours left on Lil JoJo's life were slipping by, ticking down faster than he could realize. The energy he thought was power was actually danger closing in, and the storm that had been building over months was about to reach its breaking point. In the streets, attention and disrespect are currency, but sometimes the price comes due in ways no one can escape. JoJo was living in the moment, but the consequences were already lining up behind him, ready to claim what the reckless energy had called forward. September 4th, 2012, started like any other day on the South Side, but for Lil JoJo, the energy in the streets that day carried a storm he didn't realize was closing in. The feud that had been simmering for months, fueled by diss tracks, online taunts, and personal confrontations, had reached a critical point. The city, the blocks, the rival sets, they all felt the tension in the air. JoJo, riding high on the attention his music had brought, was moving through the day with a confidence that bordered on recklessness. Every action, every post, every word he shouted or typed online was like pouring gasoline onto a fire that had been steadily growing. By mid-afternoon, around 4:04 p.m., he and his affiliates were driving past the block where his rivals were gathered. Lil Reese was there, standing among his people, and JoJo didn't just roll by quietly. According to those who watched, he made it clear he was aware of their presence, mocking them, letting the world know exactly where he was. His intention was clear. He wanted to provoke, to get a reaction, but he didn't realize that every taunt, every laugh, every shout was setting the clock ticking on his own life. Lil Reese responded immediately. Words were exchanged, tension spiked, and in that heated moment, a declaration was made that would mark JoJo for death. "I'ma kill you." The threat didn't disappear. It hung in the air, heavy and dangerous, a promise that the streets don't forget. JoJo, undeterred, didn't slow down. If anything, he accelerated the tension. He called out Lil Reese online, daring him, mocking him, and further escalating the situation. In the digital world, the confrontation became a performance, a public challenge. But what JoJo didn't understand, or perhaps refused to see, was how much danger he was putting himself in. By 6:13 p.m., he went one step too far. Posting his location online, he effectively drew a target on himself, leaving an invitation for anyone who wanted to make good on the threat. It was a bold move, a display of ego and bravado, but in the streets, boldness without caution can be fatal. The hours passed, each minute bringing him closer to the inevitable. Around 7:30 p.m., JoJo was riding on the handles of a bike, an unknown affiliate pedaling eastbound on 71st Street, west of Princeton Avenue. The streets had become a stage for the final act of the feud, and the tension that had been building for months was about to erupt. According to police reports, a four-door sedan rolled up behind them, flanked by two other vehicles. The shooter in the front driver's seat didn't hesitate. Bullets rang out, striking JoJo at the corner of 75th and Princeton. The cars vanished into the night just as quickly as they had appeared, leaving chaos, panic, and unanswered questions in their wake. JoJo tried to flee, sprinting towards 6954 South Princeton, but the streets that had always felt like home, that had carried him through the energy and bravado of his rise, offered no refuge now. He collapsed on the sidewalk, the life inside him fading with every second. Emergency crews rushed him to Comer Children's Hospital, but the damage had been done. At 9:03 p.m., 21:03 hours, Lil JoJo's life was officially recorded as over. The final hours of his life were a tragic intersection of ego, defiance, and the cycles of violence that had defined his environment. What began as online taunts and street-level provocations escalated into a deadly real-world confrontation. The pride and confidence that had carried him through battles with rivals, that had fueled his rise in the music scene, ultimately became the very forces that pushed him over the edge. For the people watching on the blocks, for the friends and rivals, for those who had tried to warn him, the events of that evening were a stark reminder of the cost of the streets. The energy that had made JoJo feel untouchable became the trap that claimed him. The feud he had stoked, the taunts he had thrown, and the bold choices he had made all converged in those final moments. The streets, always hungry for respect and retaliation, had collected their due. That night, the South Side felt the weight of his absence. The music, the bravado, the threats, all ended in a silence that no diss track, no post, no boast could ever undo. Lil JoJo's story, his rise, his defiance, and ultimately his fall, became a permanent mark on the blocks he had roamed, a cautionary tale of pride, ego, and the unforgiving rules of the streets. Surveillance footage from near the scene later painted a chilling picture matching the breakdown in the official reports. On the video, JoJo could be seen perched on the handlebars of the bike, riding with an unknown affiliate who was pedaling down the block. The energy in the frame was tense, almost casual, but the air carried a weight that only hindsight would reveal. Then, out of nowhere, 3 cars came speeding up from behind. The first car pulled alongside, the shooter's presence unseen until the shots rang out. JoJo turned, reacting to the sudden danger, but the movement was too late. The footage captures the chaos, the bike rider suddenly veering away, sprinting down the street in the opposite direction, leaving JoJo exposed to what was coming. The seconds stretched, tension building with each frame before the fatal shot struck. Moments later, police vehicles appeared on the footage, lights flashing, converging on the scene where the violence had erupted. When investigators combed the area, the evidence confirmed what the cameras had shown. 6 9mm shell cartridges were found on the ground, each one telling a story of the shots fired in that brief, deadly encounter. Eyewitnesses had reported hearing 6 gunshots, and the forensic evidence lined up exactly. 1 bullet had pierced JoJo's chest, entering through his back before striking his heart, the fatal blow that ended his life in an instant. The footage and the evidence together captured the final tragic moments of a young life abruptly cut short. Every movement, every turn, every split-second decision, the video immortalized them, a stark reminder of how quickly a moment of defiance can turn into a moment of death on the streets. News of Lil JoJo's death hit Chicago like a shockwave. Word traveled fast through the neighborhoods, the streets, and eventually onto local television. Reporters tied the homicide directly to the months-long feud with rival Black Disciples affiliates, including Chief Keef, Lil Durk, and Lil Reese. The city couldn't ignore it. The story wasn't just about one young man. It was a snapshot of the violence, pride, and chaos that had been building for years. For JoJo's family, the tragedy was intensely personal. His brother, Swag Dinero, shared details about the last time he saw him alive. Less than an hour before the shooting, the two of them had been together, moving through the streets, talking, laughing, before dropping JoJo off to go his own way. It was a brief, ordinary moment, but in hindsight, it would be remembered as the final memory before everything changed. The grief of family and friends clashed with the street's quick moves. While they mourned, some of his rivals and their affiliates reportedly took to online spaces to mock his death, showing the ruthless reality of the environment he was part of. At the center of the attention was Chief Keef. His tweets and online behavior sparked suspicion, making him the focal point of speculation. To many, he had become the prime suspect, the figure behind the orchestration of JoJo's murder. Some of his posts seemed almost casual, hysterical laughter, dismissive comments, and later claims that his account had been hacked or that he didn't know JoJo, fueling more anger and debate. Even as the online world debated his involvement, the streets were talking, pointing, and watching every move. The family wasn't silent. Lil JoJo's mother and brother went public, appearing on live television to express their grief and their belief that Chief Keef was directly responsible. She stated with raw emotion that she believed Keef had paid members of his crew to carry out the hit on her son. One of JoJo's close affiliates later confirmed this sentiment in an interview, telling reporters bluntly, "We heard them rap dudes put money on Brohead." The words reverberated through the city, giving voice to suspicions that had already begun to circulate in the streets. The speculation didn't stop there. Chief Keef's cousin, Tato, allegedly posted online naming D. Rose, Fredo Satana, and Keiki, affiliates of Keef, as the shooters involved in JoJo's death. Social media amplified the rumors, and the spotlight on Keef and his crew intensified. Swag Dinero also spoke online about the shooter, which added even more weight to the accusations. Every post, every comment, every mention seemed to tighten the circle of suspicion around Keef and his affiliates, making the feud feel like a public, citywide trial. The cycle of violence escalated quickly. Just about 2 weeks after JoJo's death, on September 17, 2012, Keith Bonds, also known as Kiki, one of Keef's affiliates, was shot and killed. Police reports later linked the killing to the ongoing feud, suggesting it was retaliation for JoJo's murder. The back and forth was relentless. By this point, the feud had left a trail of bodies, turning the streets into a ledger of revenge and loss. In the wake of JoJo's death, the aftermath was chaotic. The media coverage, the speculation online, the mourning of family, and the taunts of rivals created a tense, almost combustible atmosphere. Every social media post, every news report, every rumor seemed to fan the flames further, reinforcing the perception that the feud wasn't just personal. It was a war playing out in real time. Families grieved in public, rivals watched from the sidelines, and the city itself seemed to hold its breath, waiting to see how the streets would respond next. The story of Lil JoJo's death wasn't confined to one block or one set. It spread through neighborhoods, through tweets, through live television interviews, through whispered conversations. It became a cautionary tale of pride, ego, and the deadly consequences of the street code. What had started as diss tracks and online taunts became a violent chain reaction, claiming lives and leaving families devastated. The feud, in all its brutality, had left a permanent mark, a reminder that in the streets of Chicago, retaliation and reputation can become more powerful than life itself. Lil JoJo had the kind of potential that could have taken him far beyond the streets, but the reality of the life he was living pulled him down a path so many youths from his neighborhood found themselves on. Friends, elders, and even rival gang members had warned him about the dangers, tried to guide him away from the cycle of violence and revenge. But like so many before him, he was caught up in the magnetic pull of gang culture, where respect, reputation, and retaliation often outweigh reason. When he was gone, what remained was a vacuum of anger, grief, and a hunger for vengeance. His affiliates, devastated by the loss of someone they saw as more than just a street name, swore to make those responsible pay. Their grief morphed into rage, and in their determination for retribution, they even extended threats to the families of their rivals, taking the cycle of violence to an even darker level. The streets that had nurtured their youth had now become a battlefield, a place where mourning and plotting revenge went hand in hand. Meanwhile, on the other side, Lil JoJo's rivals were celebrating. Another young life, someone who had grown up in the same neighborhoods, faced the same struggles and temptations, had fallen. The celebration of his death was a stark reminder of the senseless war the streets perpetuated, a war that didn't discriminate, claiming casualties on all sides. Families mourned, loyalties shifted, and the cycle of violence continued, showing that in the world JoJo inhabited, survival, respect, and revenge were inseparable, and even potential couldn't protect a young life from being swallowed by the street. Lil JoJo's story, tragic as it was, became emblematic of a pattern repeated across neighborhoods, a cautionary tale of how easily promise can be consumed by pride, rivalry, and the unforgiving reality of gang life. Even in death, the reverberations of his life and choices would continue to shape the streets, feeding grudges, fueling retaliation, and leaving an indelible mark on everyone who witnessed it. Lil JoJo's funeral was supposed to be a solemn farewell, a moment for family and friends to mourn the young life lost too soon. But the streets swallowed him even in death, and the tension that had defined his life spilled over to the surface. Hundreds of mourners packed into the funeral, each eager to take one last look at the casket and pay their respects. But the crowd quickly became uncontrollable. As the sea of people surged forward, the casket nearly tipped to the floor, forcing family members back and leaving them struggling to maintain space and order. Chicago police were called into the lagoon, pushing through the crowd to clear pathways and restore some semblance of control. Lil JoJo's mother, overcome with grief, was led out of the viewing area, her cries echoing through the room, while other family members grabbed the microphone, pleading with mourners to step back and give space and respect. The atmosphere was thick with the weight of loss, but also the unmistakable presence of the street. Gang influence was visible everywhere. Handshakes exchanged, subtle signals passed between mourners, and a silent acknowledgement of the loyalties and rivalries that had defined JoJo's life. Even in mourning, the rules of the streets were present, reminding everyone that the same environment that had shaped him was still very much alive in the room. The funeral became more than a memorial. It was a stark reflection of the world Lil JoJo had been part of, a life filled with loyalty, pride, conflict, and the constant shadow of violence. For those in attendance, the grief was mixed with unease, knowing that the same forces that claimed JoJo's life could very well continue to shape the lives of everyone in the room. Even years after Lil JoJo's death, his presence continues to echo through the streets he once walked. His affiliates carry the weight of his memory with them, fueling the energy and influence of the BDK movement that had played such a tragic role in his life. Though JoJo himself is gone, the legacy of the violence and rivalry that claimed him has not faded. The young man who once taunted rivals online, who rode through the blocks with confidence, and who had dreams of making his voice heard through music, now lives on in the stories and actions of those who remain loyal to him. His affiliates, driven by grief and anger, continue to honor him in ways both symbolic and literal, keeping the spirit of his struggle alive while perpetuating the same streets conflicts that defined his life. JoJo's name, his legacy, and the energy he carried remain a constant reminder of both the promise and the peril of the life he lived, a life cut short, yet still leaving a mark that continues to shape the movements, loyalties, and feuds of the streets he called home. Even in his absence, the influence of Lil JoJo endures, a tragic emblem of potential lost in the ongoing cycles of pride, retaliation, and remembrance in Chicago's neighborhoods.
The shit is wicked on these mean streets, mean